Yeah, we're not doctors or giving any medical advice. This show is intended for educational purposes only, and you should talk to your doctor about any medical issues. Now, let's get at it.
Welcome to Chat the Fat, where nutrition authors Nissa Graun and TC Hale are going to break down common low-carb mistakes. Let's chat all things low-carb, keto, digestion, and more so you can maximize your results.
Hello, good people, and welcome back to Chat the Fat. This is episode 20. I'm TC Hale, and I'm here with the lovely Nissa Graun. Nissa, we haven't played it in a really long time.
I know, it's been a while.
I don't even remember how to do this. So even though we've had new shows coming out every week, we have secretly been on hiatus for, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months? Is it 2 months?
I think almost 3.
Maybe almost 3. So I moved across the country and we were like, wow, that's not going to be easy. Maybe we shouldn't record shows in the middle of that. So we got a little bit ahead. And then since that was almost an impossible task for me to manage, I went ahead and we threw the low carb cruise right in the middle of that. Why not have me fly off to the other side of the country and then get on a boat for 8 days and then fly all the way back so that I can pack up and drive all the way back across the country. I was like, you know, those pictures of the maps where you just go all over. I was that picture.
Well, we made 2 stops in Florida. Maybe you should have just stayed at one of them.
Right. We asked for like, you know, because we docked in Orlando and Sarah and Jax flew into Orlando. I'm like, can we just get on the boat here? And they're like, no, there's like terrorist rules and things. You can't get on the boat if you're not getting on in the first place. And so it was defined as havoc.
Yes.
So, but we're back. I'm in my new studio office / thing, which is really cool because in my last place, my office was inside and my studio was detached so that crying babies wouldn't, you know, mess us up. But now crying babies don't cry. They just ask, can you buy me a new car? And so we got it all in one place. So it's all good. And we had fun on the low carb cruise. What was your favorite part of all that?
Wow, I don't know. There was a lot of fun. I really loved meeting all the new people. I haven't really been to a keto event before, so that was a fun one for my first event.
Right. And it was fun hanging out with your family too and all that stuff. And so Nissa and I both spoke on the low carb cruise that Jimmy Moore puts on every year and had a great time. By the time this show comes out, those talks should be available on Jimmy Moore's podcast, Living La Vida Low Carb. So you can probably find them on that. Nissa was in a panel. What was the name of the panel?
I think it was Overcoming Food Addictions.
Yeah, I think that was something like that. So you can find her on that one. But now we're going to do a whole new show. We have a new topic.
We do. Today we are going to talk about keto flu.
Dun, dun, dun. Dreaded keto flu.
Yes. So many mainstream experts urge you to steer clear of a ketogenic diet because they warn of the nausea, headache, dizziness, and flat-out misery that many people experience while following a keto diet. What these mainstream experts fail to mention is many of these symptoms are only temporary for most ketoers who experience them. And if you approach keto the right way, you may not even experience these symptoms at all. Now, these symptoms come along with what many like to refer to as the keto flu. They can typically occur within the first few weeks of the diet as your body switches over from burning its primary source of fuel, which is glucose, to its new primary source of fuel, which is fat. As your body is making the switch, it can freak out since you're losing electrolytes and mass, and your body may think fuel is scarce when it's no longer receiving the carbs that it's become accustomed to running on. So in today's Chat the Fat, we're talking about the dreaded keto flu, along with the steps you can take to lessen keto flu or even avoid it altogether.
Yeah, I haven't had a client experience any keto flu issues because I understand it. I tell them, you know, they know what steps they're going to take ahead of time. But of course, we hear about people having this from time to time. And, you know, a lot of mainstream people will say, well, obviously this diet is not good for you because look at the mess you turn into when you started. So we want to kind of explain why that happens to some people, what's going on, and how not to have that. The cool kids aren't doing that. They don't get that.
I personally experienced keto flu many, many, many times, even before I even tried keto, because I used to always start and stop a low carb diet, and then I'd always get sick about a week or two into it, and then I'd
That's
go
when
right
you
back to
weren't
carbs.
you weren't one of the cool kids at that time though. Now you're
Yeah.
one of the cool kids, so it's different.
All right, now I know.
Right.
So other people can know. I thought we would start with the definition of keto flu. And
Great.
so the keto flu is a collection of symptoms which can sometimes feel similar to the flu that are caused by the body adapting to very little carbohydrate intake. Some people may begin to feel symptoms of the keto flu as early as the first 3 to 5 days after beginning a keto diet, and it can last a week or sometimes even more if you're not taking proper steps to avoid or lessen the keto flu. Some of these symptoms might include fatigue, headache, irritability, difficulty focusing, or what some people refer to as brain fog, a lack of motivation, dizziness, sugar cravings, nausea, and sometimes even muscle cramps.
Yeah, like when I get a cold and I'm really sick, I'm a sissy. I'm like a child. I'm like a
M-
3-year-old child.
Most men are.
Right. And I'm at best a 5-year-old child most of the time anyway. So I'm not losing a lot of ground there when I get sick. But when I get sick, I'm just a little wuss in the corner, balled up in the fetal position, just emotional mess and, short temper and no energy, all that stuff. So what we want to explain is why you get a similar situation when doing that. So we'll get into that a little bit today. But those of you who are a different person when you're sick are going to understand a little bit better about why that happens.
And I think a lot of people who've been doing keto for a while understand this now, but maybe if you're on the fence about keto or you haven't started low carb or keto yet, a lot of people ask, why would people start a keto diet knowing that they're going to experience this misery? And
A lot
they
of
just,
people are experiencing this anyways. They're miserable already. What's the problem?
yeah, you might as well face the misery for a while first so you can get the health benefits a few weeks into it. But a lot of people, if they do experience these symptoms, they just need to know that they're only temporary. And once they finally get past this stage, most ketoers actually feel extra energy, as well as many of the other health benefits that come along with ketosis, including weight loss, which I'm sure a lot of people are listening for that reason. And plus, like I said, we are going to talk about some of the steps that you can take to help improve these symptoms.
Okay, good. So let's get into some of these symptoms and what's causing them and stuff like that.
All right, so we want to talk about what symptoms are causing what a lot of people refer to as keto flu. And one of these are your body is switching over from burning glucose as fuel to now burning a new fuel source, which is your fat stores. And the other big one is when your body loses electrolytes, your body is losing electrolytes quickly when we drop carbs because those carbohydrates are keeping the electrolytes in you. And once you drop them, you start peeing a lot.
Right. And so when you're taking in carbs, your insulin goes a little bit higher, and that can kind of trigger your body to hold on to minerals and so that the body can use them. We're going to talk about why the minerals are so important in a minute. But when you drop most of the carbs that you're eating, which most people do when they go on a ketogenic diet, your insulin really comes down. It's not being called into action as often, or you don't need as much insulin to process the small amount of carbs that you're eating and maybe, green vegetables and things like that. So when insulin goes really low, that triggers the body to dump more minerals, to pee out more minerals. And so the variance here comes in how effective is your insulin. So if you're a person that doesn't need to make a lot of insulin in order to process the amount of glucose that's in your bloodstream, maybe you just need a little bit. When your insulin starts to go down, now you're hardly making, when your carbs start to go down, you're hardly making any insulin at all. So you could dump a lot of minerals out. If you're a person who maybe you're leaning a little bit insulin resistant and maybe your body needs to make more insulin, in order to process pretty much any glucose in the bloodstream, then you might not feel this as severely. So yay, insulin resistant, almost type 2 diabetic people, you get 1 point for you. That's pretty much the only point you get, but you do get one. So this is one of the reasons why some people will experience flu-like symptoms more than another person.
Okay. And so why are electrolytes such an important part of life? Why do we need them?
Yeah, why?
That question is for you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. So minerals in the body pretty much allow every signal and thing to go on to happen. Like a lot of the signals that go from the brain down to the body saying, hey, do this action. And then there's more signals that go from the body back to the brain saying, hey, this happened and we did this and that kind of stuff. So a lot of things have to be going back and forth and functioning, and they kind of travel through minerals in order to do that. There are some other things that the body can use. Glucose can help a little bit with that. And there's other things that can kind of thicken up the blood pressure and allow everything to function correctly. But glucose and minerals are the majority of that kind of formula there. So when minerals start to go down, not only are there no minerals there for specific needs and functions, like, for example, we need calcium in the tissues and to allow muscles to contract and relax and all those kind of things. And magnesium has to be in different places. So there's uses for specific minerals, and there's a lot of them, but just minerals in general need to be in the system for everything to kind of function. So when they start to go low, people tend not to function so well, and they start to deal with things, like depression and anxiety and dizziness and a lot of these other flu symptoms, major fatigue, because there's just not enough resources for the body to work correctly. So it's a really big deal. You really have to have enough minerals in the system. And we'll talk about why that happens in a flu in just a second. But if you're dumping all your minerals out because you're changing how you're eating, it can cause a lot of these symptoms to magnify.
And I think anyone who knows anything about keto will agree that it is a really big deal. And you always hear about when people get the keto flu that they need to replace their electrolytes. So at least people know that much. But some of the advice that I really see people screaming from the rooftops is that when you start losing electrolytes, you should immediately go to 7-Eleven and buy some sports drinks to replace electrolytes. So why is that information wrong?
7-Eleven, there's not as much of a bargain as you think. You're not getting the good price. That's the real problem, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and the sports drink.
Yeah, the sports drink. So especially if you are going out and just buying regular Gatorade, obviously you don't want that on a keto diet because those drinks are very high in sugar, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. But also the sugar-free versions, such as G2 or Powerade Zero, contain a lot of junk sweeteners that just aren't great for your health. And they can also lead to insulin spikes in a lot of people.
Right. So if they think, hey, I'm doing everything keto-y, I'm not having any carbs or sugars, but they're drinking this sports drink with all kinds of artificial sweeteners that are tricking your body into spiking insulin, just as if you were eating those sugars. And that reaction is not going to be the same for everybody. Some people do okay on some sweeteners, and some people do not. But in a situation where you're changing everything, how your body is running, basically, you want to know as much of what's going on as you can. You want as much in your favor as you can when you first start, so that you can adapt quickly and get fat adapted quickly, so your body's running off of fat. And then you can start tossing in and testing out some things to see if they work for you or not. But just because one person can eat some pancakes and still be in ketosis the next day doesn't mean that most people can, because most people can't. So don't think that just because something works for somebody else, it's going to work for you. I'm going to yell at you if you think that.
And also beyond just creating those insulin spikes, when you're drinking super sweet stuff like that, it usually leads to more cravings for other sweet foods that maybe aren't as keto friendly. too. So that's definitely another reason that you should avoid drinks like that, even if they have electrolytes.
Right. You don't want to magnify your ability to get cravings because a lot of you, especially with low blood pressure, are going to get crazy cravings when you start doing keto. So listen to our episode on cravings if you need to figure that out, because that's a really big topic.
All right. And now what about pickle juice? Because a lot of people will jump in there and tell others to down pickle juice to avoid the keto flu.
Well, pickle juice has minerals in it. So it's from the food kind of soaking in there, just like bone broth. When you cook bone broth, you get a lot of minerals into that water. And that can be one way to lift some minerals. The other thing is that most people's minerals are so extremely low because their digestion is piss poor. They're not breaking down the food they're eating in the first place. And pickle juice can take some of that vinegar that's in there and help acidify your stomach a little more to help you break down food a little bit. So there really can be two pluses to it. It's just it's not the thing that I tell people to do. Do you tell people to do that?
No, I don't personally like to drink pickle juice, so it's never even really crossed my mind.
Just because you thought, hey, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not just a wives' tale. There's actually reasons that it could benefit some people that way. So I'm not going to yell at anybody if they want to do a couple of shots of pickle juice with their friends.
Yeah. My 5-year-old doesn't eat the best, and he likes pickle juice, so I encourage him to drink that.
Right. And with a kid like that, when I think that maybe they need some digestive help, I usually give them pickles because it's more gentle than using HCl or something like that. And it just gives a little boost. And so that's fine.
All right. And so now the keto flu, like you said, it affects different people in different ways. And some people just feel downright bad. So should these people run out and get Tamiflu to get past this stage or take any medications?
Maybe not. So let's look at the flu for a second. So when you get the flu, a lot of times you do feel you have fatigue, you get headaches, you're irritable, your energy is completely gone. You might ache, all these things are going on that just make you feel lousy. And it's not that an invader that comes in, because when you have a cold, that's what it is. It's an invader, whether it's bacterial or viral or whatever. But that invader doesn't come in and just push a button to make you tired. It's what's going on is that your body is using so many resources to jack up the immune system and to fight off this invader. You might have stuff running out your nose and you don't feel so great. And so you're like, oh, I'm just going to go to work today. I don't feel so great, but I'll tough it out and I'll go to work. So it's just kind of normal for you with a little bit less good. But inside, your body is going to war. It's like a hell zone in there going on. Your body's fighting off this invader and try to get something out of the body that's not supposed to be in there. And it takes a lot of resources. So when you're wiped out and you just have no energy, it's because you don't have the fuel for your body to function correctly and fight off this invader. Does that make sense? There's
Yeah.
what's going on. So you don't get to still have the same energy and brain function and everything working correctly that you would normally when your body has to do this other huge task going on. So when it's putting all these resources, you have less fuel available to do your normal body tasks. So now you're changing your diet to where you're taking away your body's normal fuel source. And it's pissed. It doesn't like you. Why would you take away my fuel source? So now it doesn't have, again, the resources for the body to function the way that it should. So, of course, you would feel the same as if you had a flu. So it's not that you need, NyQuil or something that's going to help you with flu symptoms. You just need to give your body more fuel sources and or help your body adapt to using a different type of fuel source to run those same functions.
So I have a question. So about a year ago, I started an elimination diet. And after I dropped a bunch of foods, my body went through this huge detox. And at the time I had no idea what was going on. I just had a really bad sore throat and, I felt like I couldn't swallow for about 5 weeks. And so I thought I had some kind of weird throat infection. And then finally I realized it was the detox. With that being said, a lot of people switch over from the standard American diet to keto, so they probably have a lot of toxins floating around. So do you think if someone has a prolonged keto flu, even if they're taking in all the electrolytes, that could just be attributed to the body detoxing?
That can be one thing, but another thing before we talk about the detox is that it's a lot of it is dependent on how much is your body peeing out all these minerals. Because some people, they're peeing them out as fast as you dump it in. It's just like you're dumping it in the top and it's just flowing out, like they're not retaining enough of that. So that can be one issue that can take people a little bit longer. But the detox situation is a couple things. Is a lot of times foods that we have a food sensitivity issue to, and it may be causing a lot of problems that we don't even really realize it's causing, because maybe we eat grains and we don't go into anaphylactic shock, and so we assume grains are fine for us. But a lot of people have issues that are caused by grains. And when the body is overwhelmed by something and something is a burden, it tries to find ways to get rid of these things, especially if it can't digest them correctly and turn them into nutrients. And so when the removal system is kind of not working as well and it's overwhelmed, maybe you're on 3 medications and your liver's getting punched in the face all day, the body will just take stuff and shove it into fat cells and say, okay, I'm going to get this out when the coast is clear. But we have a bagel every morning and the coast is never clear. So then we finally get some sense and we put the bagel away and we don't eat that every day. And now the body says, hey, I got all this junk backed up. I can get this out now because the bloodstream is not filled with all this garbage and I got some room here. So it starts pulling stuff out. And same with, medications and drugs and stuff like that. I've seen people who haven't taken a drug for, over a year, and they start either detoxing or losing a lot of weight, where the body is dumping a lot of this junk that's stored in fat cells, and they start feeling all the side effects that they used to feel from that drug. And so it's just a strong sign that shows you that the body can really adapt to a situation. And so sometimes if the body is dumping more than you're ready to move out of the body, it can just, you get to feel a lot of that, as if you ate 12 bagels. You didn't, but a lot of it's coming out, so it feels like it.
Yeah, I've definitely been experiencing some of that lately as well. I can attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we wanted to talk about 5 easy steps that people can take to get past the keto flu stage. So the first easy step that we have is to supplement with proper electrolytes that are also right for your chemistry. So a lot of times people should increase their salt and water intake, but at the same time, they also need to keep an eye on their blood pressure if they are currently electrolyte deficient, or if maybe their blood pressure is already high when they're first starting.
Right. And you really want to look at that. Getting a $35, $40 blood pressure cuff can change your life if you understand what to do with that information. And we teach people how to look at that information. If you don't understand, if you're just new to listening to us, then you want to take our almost free digestion course. It's 50 cents just to keep out spam registrations, but you can go to kickitnaturally.com/keto digest. And you can sign up for that course, and it walks you through how to run some simple tests like blood pressure and understand what those numbers are telling you. But if you have keto flu, all the keto experts are going to tell you that you have to increase your water and you have to take magnesium and all these things. But if your blood pressure is, 89/60, and you drink a whole bunch of more water, you're going to wash out the small amount of minerals that you have. So you're going to feel worse when you do that. In most cases, people do need more water, but you want to look at your specific situation. And, magnesium, boy, we hear about that, don't we?
Yes.
Right. And the thing is that magnesium is the most pro-catabolic mineral that there is. So we talk a lot about an imbalance called a catabolic imbalance that can cause a lot of problems and can magnify things like insulin resistance and stuff like that. And so if you already have an issue like that, you're going to magnify it with magnesium. Now, most of us need a little more magnesium just because it's not very available in our fuel source, in our food source anymore. But if you're just taking what people are telling you to take, a lot of people are going to make themselves a lot worse. So you want to look at your chemistry before you start dumping that in too.
Okay. And this is a question I actually just read in a book. Have you ever heard that salt does not actually increase your blood pressure?
I've heard people say that, but it doesn't increase your blood pressure the way that people think it does. A lot of people, they may have a lot of sodium in the system, and that's thickening up the blood and raising their blood pressure. And if they used a real unrefined salt, like sea salt or real, the company Real Salt that makes that, they start using that. Now they're going to get all of these cofactors and other minerals that allow the body to use more of that sodium. So when they add that, their blood pressure actually goes down because now the body can use a lot of that. But if a person can't pee out their salts at all, there's a lot of problems causing that. And then you add more salt in there, then sure, adding more mineral into a system that can't deal with the mineral that it has in there, well, that would cause more mineral to be there. That would make blood pressure go up. But you can't view it like salt makes blood pressure go up, and you especially can't view it like salt is unhealthy. That's how we viewed it when I was growing up. The doctor told my Uncle Bill that salt was going to kill him, so we were like, oh, that's going to kill us. We better not have very much of that. That's definitely not the case. Your body needs the minerals that are in salt.
But can it be dangerous then if your blood pressure is already high when you start keto and you start adding more salt?
Well, that's kind of the thing, is that in most cases, it's not going to be, just because when you start keto, if you're dropping carbs, you're dropping a big portion of what is making your blood pressure high. It's the carbs themselves that those actual sugars are thickening the blood and making your blood pressure higher. It's the insulin being so high that's causing you to retain a lot of those minerals. So most people are going to start dropping mineral levels as soon as they drop the carbs. So if you're adding in salt at the same time, most people are just going to, worst case scenario, stay in the same place for a week or two until they can start really getting rid of some junk. But first of all, I'd rather not see people use salt. I'd rather have them use sea salt or unrefined salt, something that's actual real food. It's not the processed fractions of the minerals. But what you want to do is you want to be conscious of what you're doing. Watch your blood pressure. If you're doing things and blood pressure goes up, then you're like, hey, don't do those things. You need to figure out what's going on.
Okay, so with all of that salt talk being said, we do have a few tips to help you increase your blood pressure to avoid the keto flu. And one of those is you can drink broth with added salt, and then you can also add some butter for extra fat if you need it. When I first started, I personally experienced the keto flu symptoms, and I was told to add a chicken bouillon cube to hot water and then also add extra salt, which it wasn't my favorite flavor, but I did it so I wouldn't get the keto flu. And while this did help me feel better temporarily and help me get past the keto flu, I personally now would recommend broth over this method because the bouillon cubes are often filled with a lot of junk that probably aren't ideal for most people.
Right. And again, could really help somebody feel better, as it did with you. So if it's all you got, do it. But if you can make or get some bone broth, it's a better move.
Yes. All right. So number 2, the second tip we have is to add more fat at the beginning of a keto diet. So like I just talked about, you can drink your broth and add some butter for extra fat, or even some coconut oil would be great as well. And you want to let your body know that enough fat is coming in, so it will make the switch over to fat burning mode instead of feeling like it's in famine mode from not enough nutrients coming in. If you're eating too little fat or forcing too low calorie, your body could start to think that it needs to conserve your body fat for a famine, and it might not make that switch over to burning stored fat. And so this could actually result in a prolonged keto flu stage because your body isn't making the switch over to burning fat.
Right. And, another thing when you're adding more fat, it's a good move because you're teaching your body to burn this instead. And then all of a sudden you have fuel and you feel better. But if part of your keto flu that you're experiencing is nausea, and that nausea is coming from an inability to digest fats correctly, then this all of a sudden makes you feel worse. And you're like, keto is broken. It doesn't work for me. Um, but you may need to take steps to get your bile flowing correctly so that you can digest fats correctly, and then that nausea will go away. And we talk about how to do that in a lot of the other episodes where we talk about digestion. And of course, the Almost Free Digestion course, we really dig into that a lot.
And I think a lot of keto experts out there, when they talk about adding fat in a keto diet, they just assume people's digestion is working well because I don't really hear them talk about it. So I'm
Oops.
guessing they make that assumption. But the thing that I wanted to point out here is there's quite a few keto experts that are still saying, do not add fat to your keto diet. Just eat your chicken and your salad, and you don't really need to add fat. You just need to make sure your carbs are low and your protein is moderate, and you'll be in ketosis, which isn't always true, especially when you first start a keto diet.
And I think that's the important part, especially, is when you first start a keto diet. Because because there are people where that's true, where they have so much stored body fat that they don't need to take in a lot because the body has availability to it. But when you're first starting to use a keto diet, your body needs fats to function. Like there's a lot of functions that require fats. There's a lot of minerals that you can't absorb without fats. And when your body is not getting the fat coming in that it needs, it holds on to the fat that it has stored like money in the bank. I'm keeping this. I'm going to have this for, apparently an emergency is coming, so I'm going to hold on to this for that emergency. So you really want to give your body enough fat every day and even every meal when you're starting to do this to teach your body that, look, it's all cool. Every fat's coming in. You're getting what you need. It's going to be fine. You can dump some of that stored fat, and then it will start to do that. And if you can start that train and get fat adapted, then some people can reduce the amount of fat that they're taking in and still burn as much body fat because they have become fat adapted. But that can take a few weeks for some people. So it can be important to just, I like to see everybody just start taking in fat when you start. If you don't dump 37 pounds the first week, why do you have to freak out? Not going to dump 37 pounds. If you go up a little bit, don't freak out. Your body's just adjusting. You're taking in extra fat at a time when you're not yet processing a lot of fat. So sure, you might gain a little bit of it weight, but you're teaching your body how to burn that. And then once it's good at it, then it can start burning a lot of that stored fat.
Now, I do want to go back to something you said, because I think a lot of people are
I'm
still
already done
confused.
with that part. I moved on.
You might be confusing our listeners. We don't want that.
Okay.
So you had said that if you already have a lot of fat on your body to burn, that you might not need extra fat. And so I think a lot of people take that to mean if you have a lot of fat you want to burn, you don't need to eat extra fat. But there are people, even if you have a lot of extra fat on your body, if say you came from a cycle of dieting for years where you just restricted, you kept lowering your calories and hoping to lose weight, that your body is in that famine mode. So even if you have a lot of body fat to burn, if you're not adding extra fat at the beginning, you likely will never get into ketosis in the first place. So even if you have that extra fat, you still probably need to add more fat, at least at the beginning.
Right. At least at the beginning. You have to adapt. You have to become fat adapted before your body's going to access the stored fat. Because when it's not coming in and your body doesn't have its old fuel source, it's just going to raise stress hormones. And the stress hormones tell the body, hey, let's store more things as fat. So you really have to teach your body to do this, and you can't expect it to just do it on its own.
And I I think a lot of people are confused, like, oh, is she smaller so she could eat more fat, or I'm bigger so I could eat less fat? And it doesn't really have to do with the size you are, but more your body and how it's reacting to what you're eating.
And you may be 300 pounds and your body may be processing fats very well. You may be ripping through fat and you may be already burning fat for fuel. And the reason that you're gaining weight is because every carb you eat is being converted into a fat so that your body can use it. And that's what happens with a lot of insulin resistant people. They can't process those carbs. So the body just turns it into a fat so that the body can use it as fuel. So that person may already be sort of fat adapted in the sense that they're already burning fat well. So when they start doing a keto diet, they may become fat adapted very quickly. So these experts that are telling people to do this see it work for somebody and say, oh, everybody should do that. But what you're really going to see is that the majority of people need to go through a phase of becoming fat adapted, and they need to bring in enough fat through the diet in order to get their body to burn that fat.
When we first started keto, I got into ketosis pretty easily. And my husband was eating almost the same thing as me, but, you know, a little bit more because you met him on the cruise. He's a very large man, like football player size.
He's as awesome as he is big.
So when he
Just have to
first
look
started,
up at him when I talk.
yeah, he's very tall. When we first started, he was eating very low carb, definitely under 20 carbs each day. He was moderating his protein, and he was eating enough fat to feel okay. Like, he never felt hungry, but he wasn't able to get into ketosis. And so he went to see Doc Nellie here in Arizona because he has a wife that knows some stuff, but you know how husbands don't always listen to their wives. So
Right. Yeah.
he needed an outside expert's opinion, which Doc Nellie is great. So that, you know, that was a great resource for him. And when he went to visit him, Doc Nellie looked at his macros and said, you need to double your fat. And he was already eating a lot of fat. So he was already eating probably like 150 grams of fat each day. And he told him in order to get into ketosis, he had to double that. And so he did. He doubled it. And pretty soon after that, he got into ketosis and he started burning fat. And he went on to lose like over 80 pounds following that advice. So when we went to KetoCon, there was someone on the main stage talking about, you only need to cut carbs under 20 and that's all you need to do to get into ketosis. He was fired up. He was ready to like storm the stage and take her down. I'm not going to say who she was, but he was upset and I had to calm him down. But he ran into Doc Nellie at KetoCon. And he's like, that's not right, is it? And he's like, no, that's not right. But that's what she's saying.
Right. But there is more than one opinion here, so we'll just deal with it.
Yeah, different things work for different people. And because that advice got him into so much trouble, it just got him fired up and he was not happy about it.
Right. And I'm fine with there being multiple opinions out there. I also learn all the time. They're like, oh man, I don't think I was really right about that. I think this might be what's actually going on. And that happens to me all the time. But what I really hate is when people take bad advice, fail miserably, and then say keto doesn't work or it doesn't work for me, and they stop. When they really just needed to make an adjustment like Jason did and see unbelievable results.
Yeah. All right. So that was a long tip, but tip number 3, we have to get past the keto flu quickly.
I totally forgot we were counting.
So number 3, we want to add in some light exercise. So when we talk about light exercise, we're referring to maybe a walk or something like that that can help your body switch over to burning fat for fuel. And I personally find that going for a fasted walk in the mid-morning for me can be especially helpful in making over that switch. And while we're talking about light exercise, it's also important to note that strenuous exercise can actually sometimes make your keto flu worse. And the reason for this is your body is already placing a burden on it by asking it to switch from its fuel source of glucose over to fat. And now you're going and adding in strenuous exercise at the beginning. It could actually be too many burdens on your body all at once. So while you may be excited to get into ketosis and you want to do all the right things, it's probably good advice to wait until you've been following keto for at least a few weeks before you start adding in the really strenuous exercise if that's what you find fun.
Right. And even before you started keto, your body had the ability to burn stored body fat for fuel during light exercise like walking. Your body has the ability to do that. But most people burn glycogen or glucose during anaerobic exercise like lifting weights, or even aerobic exercise that is so strenuous that your body is viewing it as, like a spin class. There's a lot, you're using big muscle groups there. It's very strenuous. Your body is not, in most cases, burning fat when you're doing that as a normal human. So when you're not really fat adapted yet, and maybe you're just starting to lean that way, your body's going to want to use glucose for fuel when you're doing things like weightlifting. So when your resources are already low, since you just switched over, doing this is going to, of course, magnify things. So you got to start off really easy. When we say, this is really emphasizing light exercise for a reason. You want it to be easy.
Okay. And so our number 4 tip for avoiding or not prolonging the keto flu is to, while keeping carbs low is important, some people actually need a slower transition. So a lot of the advice out there is you're on the standard American diet, you're eating 300 plus carbs per day. And then a lot of people will tell you, oh, you should try keto. And these people switch to under 20 grams of carbs per day, which can be such a shock to their body. And so while it is true that some people may need to stay below 20 grams of carbs or less, while also raising their fat to get into ketosis, for other people, if they're jumping from that standard American diet to keto, their bodies could just freak out if they take away the only fuel source it's ever really known by taking away all their carbs at once. And so if the keto flu is especially miserable for these people, they may actually need to take a slower transition, which means that they actually might need a few extra real food carbs while their body takes the time to switch over. Now, like you said earlier, people want to lose 37 pounds in the first week.
Right.
And having the slower transition, it might slow down the process a little bit, but it's a much easier transition for your body, which can actually help you stick with keto for the long term, which is what we want. And a lot of these people who attempt lowering their carbs to under 20 grams, once they've given their bodies a chance to adapt to burning fat as fuel, are better off. But at the beginning, they might need to actually eat more than 20 grams of carbs.
Right. And you might need that per meal in the beginning, especially if your blood pressure is low and your mineral levels are already low. The small amount of carbs can help buffer that problem. And we like to see people switch the carbs that they're eating, go away from things like, bread and potatoes and sugars and all those things that really spike insulin, and try to use more medium carb foods that contain some carbs, but maybe are not quite as insulin driving and create such a big spike. Whether that be like half a sweet potato, or maybe some butternut squash, or other types of carbs like that, maybe some berries where you're getting some. And what we like to see people do is maybe you just need some carbs for part of the day. Maybe you eat all your carbs before 3 p.m. and you stop after that. And that allows insulin to come down and stay down, let your body get into a mode where it can access stored fat for fuel and start learning how to do that better. And then if you can do okay with that, then you can try skipping days. Maybe I'll have no carbs today and see how that goes, or just 20 over the whole, day kind of thing. And then have some carbs the next day. And so you're just kind of transitioning a little slower. Don't show off so much.
And I know that you teach this in the fat loss course, that you can actually be in ketosis for part of the day by following that method. And another thing that I want to talk about is you say, okay, you could have your carbs earlier in the day. For me personally, when I tried that didn't work, because once I ate the carbs, I wanted to eat all of the carbs. So I personally would eat like eggs and bacon and butter in the morning and keep my lunch pretty low carb, but then I would add more carbs at night. I was also really catabolic, so I feel like that kind of helped me as well.
Right. And it makes sense. So it doesn't matter where your window of carbs is, as long as it's in one part of the day and you give yourself a long window of very low carbs so insulin can come down. Because keep in mind that if you're not on a ketogenic diet and you're probably not in ketosis, bringing insulin down can still put your body in a mode to where it can burn stored fat for fuel. That doesn't mean that you're in ketosis, but you're still in a fat burning zone where your body can do that. And if it does that enough, then it starts to learn how to do that more. And then you can get to the point where your body is predominantly burning fat. So giving these windows where insulin is allowed to come down can be really beneficial, whether you're doing a ketogenic diet or not.
Okay. So number 5 for helping you get past the keto flu is going to go back to that rant I had just a little while ago. And number 5 is you don't want to force calorie restriction.
Here she goes.
Yeah. This really gets me because I restricted calories for so long and it just ruined me for so long.
Right.
And it was a lot to overcome. And I feel like especially women are just told to keep restricting your calories. If you're not losing your weight, restrict more. And it's just ruining people's lives following that advice. So when people are telling you to purposefully restrict your fat on a keto diet, that's really just another way to restrict your calories because fat is so high in calories. So I think it's definitely important to note that while you should never force food past satiation, as a lot of people will become very full very quickly when they start a keto diet, but there's still others that, they feel hungry and they fear they're overeating. So they try to force calorie restriction on themselves because they're so used to, from the world of Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or whatever, that the only way to lose weight is to force calorie restriction. But keto is not like that. And if you're purposely restricting calories, this is just adding another stress to your body. And it's something else that can cause a really big weight loss stall and then cause people to think that keto is not working for them.
Right. It can cause people to quit.
Yes. And I don't like to get preachy, but that is one topic that I will preach about.
Preach on, girl.
All right.
I probably shouldn't try that.
No.
I'm not that hip. I'm not cool. Yeah.
All right. So is getting the keto flu a one-time thing for those who just start keto, or do you think some ketoers can experience keto flu more than once?
Well, now that you understand what's going on, you have to understand why not. There's a lot of events or circumstances in your life that could allow resources or minerals to go low for one reason or another. So if they do for any reason, you could experience keto flu. You know what else? You might actually have the flu.
I guess that is a possibility.
Yeah, don't forget about that.
Hopefully not. Hopefully, as you take care of your health, you will avoid the flu more. All right. And so does keto flu only last for a few days, or can people have it for weeks or even months?
Let's hear about that.
Yeah, I think if you aren't following some of these steps and if you're not doing it the right way, you can definitely have keto flu for more than just a few days. Like we talked about, everyone is experiencing the keto flu differently. So if you are not following some of the steps to help build your electrolytes, maybe if you're not eating enough fat or you aren't getting in some light exercise, it can definitely last longer than a few days.
Right. And you might just have to listen to your body a little bit. And if you understand that resources are low, maybe you don't try to do as much. Maybe you're doing too much and using up too many resources in your life. Maybe you're stressed in your life, and that stress is using resources as well. So kind of try to look at what's going on.
And I also think, so we had just talked about some people might need more carbs to help ease their transition into keto. But if you aren't following that advice correctly, that could lead to prolonged keto flu, because let's say you're following under 20 carbs every day and then your body just freaks out because maybe you're not giving it enough, and then you go and eat 200 carbs the next day. If you keep following patterns like that, you're going to kick your body out of ketosis. And especially at the beginning, before you're fat adapted, it's going to take some time to get back in. So you're likely going to experience keto flu all over again. And if you go back to those carb binges, I know a lot of people will eat keto during the week and binge on the weekends, then you're just going to be setting yourself up for keto flu after keto flu.
Yeah, I could, like, once you understand what you're looking at, I could, if somebody ate exactly what I told them to and I watched their chemistry, I could keep them in indefinite keto flu. Like they could just stay there forever. So uh, you have to work with your body and understand that you have to either lift resources or help your body burn other resources better.
Okay. And so we kind of touched on the chemistry imbalances a little bit, but how do chemistry imbalances or digestive symptoms play into the keto flu?
Well, it's especially the digestive, the symptoms of the, digestive symptoms are just a sign that digestion is not working well enough to bring all of the resources in. So if you're having any of those symptoms, you're having a destruction. I just knocked my whole desk over. Woohoo. Okay, so if you're not destructing your desk and you're not actually getting the resources so that your body can use them, eating them is not everything. Your body has to be able to use them. So any digestive symptoms are going to magnify this problem because digestion isn't working correctly and you have to fix that in order to do that. And what was the other part of the question? I don't remember.
So chemistry imbalances like electrolyte deficiency, or I don't know if there's any other ones you could think of.
Well, I think that's the biggest one. That's the biggest one that's going to play into this because if your blood pressure is low, or maybe your blood pressure is in range, but it's really mostly made up of just candy. If you have okay blood pressure, but you eat gummy bears 12 times a day, you don't really have okay blood pressure. You have candy blood pressure.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you have to see what's going on with you. And then that's going to depend a lot. But the electrolyte deficiency is the biggest one. A severe catabolic imbalance can cause some problems, but I'm seeing that less now that with people that are really catabolic and they're doing a ketogenic diet. I'm seeing them transition into it quite nicely, actually, just because if you can really up your butter and coconut oil, which are very pro-anabolic for most people, that by the time they get into a good state of ketosis, they're almost getting balanced out anyway. So that can give a little rough patches in the transition, but I see that as less problematic as the electrolyte deficiency one. That's the one you really got to work on if you want to succeed with keto.
Yeah, there's actually someone in our Keto Decoded membership recently that posted her numbers, her chemistry testing numbers, and she was still showing a little bit of a catabolic imbalance, but she's definitely been in ketosis. She tested her ketones and she's lost a lot of weight. So she's still doing keto well.
Right.
All right. Well, that is what I had for the keto flu. Did you have anything to add before we get to our listener question?
Should I talk about how people shouldn't restrict calories? Oh, no, you handled that. So, yeah, I got nothing.
There's just so many people out there still talking about it.
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, as long as we've been talking about it and as much as our world knows, don't do that. I think when you really look at the math, it's probably still 99% of the population that worries about restricting their calorie, even though we're not the only people teaching this. Most people that we know explain don't worry about the calories, but
I would like to say that for 20 years, I knew every single calorie that entered my mouth. I knew exactly how many. I knew the foods. I knew it. And I struggled and I struggled and I struggled. These days, I have no idea how many calories I eat. No clue. And it's easy. So
right.
It doesn't matter. All right. I just had to drill that point home. All right. So we have a listener question, which is from Sally from Cherville, Indiana. And she asked, when I first began keto, I was using urine strips to measure ketones. Someone told me these aren't accurate, even though my readings were purple, indicating that I was in ketosis. Is this true?
I like when you explain this one.
Okay. Well, the ketone strips are very pretty. They turn purple, which is my favorite color.
And that's so fun.
Yes, it's as much fun as peeing on your hands is. But everyone starts out using these, and it can tell you if your body is generating some ketones at the very beginning. But eventually, if you're doing this correctly, most people will start utilizing those ketones more effectively. So next, they are going to shift from you peeing them out to you actually using them. And so that transition is going to come through your breath. And then eventually it's actually going to show up in your blood. So a lot of times it's okay to use the urine strips at the beginning, but eventually if you keep using them and they're still turning purple, for a lot of people, if they're turning dark purple, that actually means they're dehydrated, not necessarily in ketosis. While other people, they just stop working altogether. And that doesn't mean that you're no longer in ketosis. It actually means that your body's probably using those ketones better. And so you actually want to test through your blood to see if you are in fact still making ketones.
Right. So it's cheap and easy. It's fine if you want to start off that way in the first week or two, but just know that it's eventually going to present misguiding information, which if you're misguided, you may be guided the wrong way and then things don't work and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah. And so I know a lot of people don't like using a blood ketone monitor because they have to prick their finger, and that's not any fun, but peeing on your hands really isn't fun either. So
Yeah. So one piece of advice I could give is just suck it up. No, I know. I have seen people that are really freaked out by the blood thing. But you can start off by having somebody else do it for you. You look away, just take the baby steps that are necessary to allow you to see that. And also keep in mind that not everybody has to look at their blood ketones. A lot of people start this diet and everything just falls into place for them and it's all fine. But we like to say a lot of people don't. So the things that we teach are for the people that everything isn't just easy. I just stopped eating a box of donuts and I lost 700 pounds. It doesn't happen for everybody. So some of these steps are important for those people, but it doesn't mean that everybody's going to need them.
yes. And my husband, when we had our first ultrasound, he was just in the room. He saw a little screen and he almost passed out from that. But he could test his ketones. So if he can test his ketones, if he can do it, anyone can do it.
Oh, I like how you just called him a sissy.
He's going to hate me for that. All right. So speaking of ketones, we actually have a product review today, and we are going to be reviewing the Keto Mojo, which is one of the blood ketone monitors that is available. And so I was thinking while we were here, do you want me to demonstrate how to test?
Yeah, let's watch you bleed.
All right. We'll see how this goes. Actually, I'm still fasting, but I had a little bit of a walk this morning because I like my fasted walks.
So if you're sensitive to blood, then don't listen to this part.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially don't watch.
And you talked about one of the blood ketone meters. I don't even know the other one meters, because for so long this was the only guy in town.
Well, when we first started, there was only the Precision Extra. And the reason that we switched over is because those testing strips were like $2 to $4 just for one strip. I think like when we first got them, they were like $4 unless you bought them in huge quantities. And so we like the Keto Mojo because they came out on the scene and their test strips, I think, are only 99 cents per strip.
Right. So they're still the only one that's affordable. So this is going to end up having a great review, but that's just because there really, in our minds, there is no competition for this one.
Yeah, I also met them at KetoCon, and they were just the nicest people ever. So that's also good for a great review.
Yeah.
All right, so here is my test. We have our monitor, and I have the test strip, and I'm just going to put that in there, hopefully. All right, so you see, I don't know if you can see that. So it goes to that. It's been a little while since I've done that. All right, you get the 0.33, and then you have the little thing that you prick your finger with. Now, since I had just
blood on the top of the meter will also be blinking when it's ready for you.
Yeah. Oh, I could show that too for anyone on YouTube if you could see that.
Yeah, see it blinks.
So I had gestational diabetes, which meant I had to prick my finger several times each day. And that means I have all the good tips, because it really hurts when you're doing it several times a day, each day. So basically a lot of people will make the mistake and prick it right here, and that really hurts. So don't do it on the pad of your finger.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I like to go on the side right there, and you basically pull this back. It should click. I think mine already clicked. And then you're going to poke it, and it doesn't really hurt that much. So you could squeeze out. You want to get
those of you who are not watching the video, if you're listening, blood is squirting out of her hand all over her face right now.
No, we are getting a good sized drop of blood. You want to make sure that drop of blood is decent size. I don't think mine is. Let me try again. Because if you don't get a good size drop of blood, then you'll waste your strip, and you don't want to do that. So some tricks you can, if you can't get enough blood, is you can hold your hand down like that so the blood kind of comes to it. You can also try squeezing your finger like that. If you're really sensitive, you can try holding your water or your hand under warm water for a few minutes, because that will help too. So I'm going to try one more time with this finger. We're not waiting forever, so I'm just going to prick it again. And if I could do it 2 times in a row, obviously it doesn't hurt that much. All right, that one's good. So I got my finger. I'm not sticking my middle finger up at any. And you just put the blood on the strip, and it is registering.
And it thinks about it.
Seconds.
Yeah, it thinks about it for a minute, and you're upside down with that right now.
Oh, I always do this wrong. So what is that reading?
2.4. Winner, chicken dinner.
2.4. I'm in ketosis. I think my ketones are definitely higher from that fasted walk and fasting all day so far.
Right, and so the meter just works well, and so that's what we use. If you want to check it out, we're actually affiliates for it because it's the only one we use. So you can go to checkthefat.com/Mojo to kind of learn more about it. And when you use that link, you'll see that a lot of the prices for different packages are actually discounted for you guys as well. Like when you go to the shopping page, you'll see a lot of the prices are slashed out, and they're cheaper because you used our affiliate link. So if you're in need of a meter, that's the one that we use.
And if you need to see how to use it, just go to YouTube, and this episode will be up there, episode 20, Keto Flu, and you can watch till the end and watch how I did that.
Cool. I feel like we finished things.
So we do have an episode download that they can get, and that is actually coming from our Keto Decoded membership. We have a ton of downloads for our members, and so we are going to share one of those downloads with our listeners, and that is how to avoid the keto flu.
Okay, awesome. And so that would be at, I don't even remember what the links are. Is it episode 20? Chatthefat.com
/episode 20. Yeah. So they can get that, or they can click through the show notes to find that as well. And then next week, it's going just to me again. I'm going to do another solo episode, and I am going to talk about dairy on keto, because I personally, when I eat too much cheese, I actually feel like I have the flu. So I thought it would be great to follow up our Keto Flu episode with an episode about consuming dairy on a keto diet. And I will be talking about not only the bad aspects of dairy, but also some of the good ones. So hopefully you will tune in to hear both the good and the bad, and how dairy can affect your keto diet.
And is that later this week, or is that next week?
That's next week.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So if you getting the links that we talked about today, or any of the download stuff, just go to chatthefat.com /episode 20. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Whether you're brand new to keto or just looking to move past roadblocks, join us for our next Troubleshooting Keto Master Workshop. Go to chatthefat.com /workshop to find upcoming dates and register for this totally free event. You just might find your missing piece of the puzzle. Until then, we'll see you next week on Chat the Fat.